Teal's from San Diego, just like me.
Yes, so my name is Teal, and yes, San Diego, California.
Perfect.
Happy to go next. Hi, I'm Urvashi. I am from UK, London, and I am a user researcher.
Okay, wonderful.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you all.
I'll go next. My name is Picha and I'm Italian, but I now live in Spain after a couple of decades in London, and I'm a designer.
Okay, wonderful.
Shall I go? Might as well.
Yes, sure.
I'm Kenneth. I'm an ethicist and a designer based in London.
All right, so nice to see you. I loved your book. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. So I really, really enjoyed it. He wrote an awesome book. You guys should all read it. Future Ethics, right? That's a full title. So,
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful books. So everybody interested in ethics should read it.
Thanks.
Tiziana, can you share the link afterwards and then we put it on your page? Because I'm also adding these videos to the presenter pages and to the event pages.
Okay.
So I've edited the first video from Monday, so you can already watch that panel on the event page, and soon I'll be adding it to the presenters pages, and then below that we'll list all of the resources. And I'm working on a page with just resources. So how can we enable designers? What tools? What networks? What communities? Any resource that you think is valuable, send it over. We'll populate a nice page with that.
Oh, thank you. See, I was finding the link. You beat me to it. So awesome. Yes.
Are we still doing the round?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Leva from Bergen, Norway, and work as a UX designer.
Okay, wonderful. Hello.
Shall I go next?
We have somebody from Sweden.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Gabrielle.
Yes, so I'm Gabrielle, and I'm from Holland, and I live near The Hague, and also I'm a UX UI designer.
All right, wonderful. Welcome. Welcome.
Shall I go next?
Sure.
I'm Agnese. I'm also Italian, and I'm a UX designer and researcher for CaixaBank. I'm based in Barcelona, Spain, and I'm very happy to take part to this event because I'm very interested in accessibility. I actually cooperate also with a school to give lessons about this topic, so I'm looking forward to learn something new today. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Nice.
I'll go next. Hello, I'm Syra. I'm a content designer in the UK. I'm based in the northeast of England.
Okay, wonderful. Hello.
I love how diverse we are.
I know.
How scattered we are.
It's nice.
The topic of diversity came up on Monday when Don was on the panel, and he did mention, we're not the most diverse bunch of people. We're all Caucasian, and
Right.
I have some experience that I can talk about there, but that's not the point of this today.
Right. Yeah, no, that's for sure. And obviously, as you can notice, this topic resonates a lot more in Europe than it does in US. So that's kind of where the fight is about, trying to get more interest in US. But hopefully we can get started, right? At least to start with California and then kind of spread out to the rest of the country.
Yeah, you can only be the change incrementally.
I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. We have a US person. Hey, Amy. Sorry, not feeling good. Yay.
US people join. Are we really all Europe? We are, aren't we?
Mostly. Well, Amy's from Minnesota. So
Yes.
we have one, beside Tio, we have one more US. So yay.
Yeah.
So that's great. All right, I think we can get started. It's like 9:10. So all right, so let me share my slides so we can get started. So there we go.
I just asked that everybody turn off their camera, then you disappear from the screen and give Tiziana the full screen to her advantage.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen? Everybody can see my screen?
No,
No.
not yet.
Not yet. Okay,
No,
let me
we
try
can
again.
see you.
Let me try again. Okay, so it was like a little tiny bit up there. Okay, share screen. Let's go, share. How about now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. So welcome everyone. I'm so excited you're all here because I feel very passionate about it. So I just want to have a really brief introduction about myself. I'm Italian from Milano originally, but I lived in the United States in San Diego, California for a very, very long time. My name is pronounced Tiziana. And I am a UX psychologist, interaction design consultant, as well as an educator and a speaker. And so I always ask, okay, what exactly do you do? So I consult, and I help companies and organizations to create ethical, inclusion, and effective experience. I speak and write about topic of UX, psychology, ethics, media, and the intersection of the above. And I train. I write curriculum, create college classes, teach, and I also do corporate training. So in one word, I share. I share what I know, and even more importantly, I learn. As you know, there's no better way to learn than share what you know. So I'm always open to learn new thing, and I'm a huge bookworm. So I will mention a few books as well as I go through it. So today agenda, I'm gonna be mentioning how psychology help create better products. But I also wanted to mention what the bad part of it, the bad side, and how psychology can be used to mislead and trick. And then I will have a discussion about ethical concern. Is psychology and ethics, can they go along, or they're just enemies? And then hopefully I can show you a few ways in which you can apply ethics in the real world. Now, I'm a very practical person, so even though I will talk about ethic as in like something that's really important and it should be used, I'm also gonna talk about practical ways, because I realize we all live in the real world and this is not a philosophical discussion. So I'll try to give you some practical advice as well. So the first thing I want to start out with is like why psychology can help create better products. I feel that there are three things that psychology can help with. Psychology can help with empathy, because understanding that you share the same strengths and weaknesses help build connection with the people you design with, as well as your shareholders. And so it definitely will give you a better product. I also think he helped with foresight, because if I understand the human brain, I can at least start to predict human behaviors. This is not like a fortune teller, but obviously everything needs to be tested and everything else, but it can give you some idea of what the future reaction could be. And it can work as a change agent, because if you understand the reason behind behaviors and decision making, you can make it easier to change it for the better. And this is kind of the key word. I always believe that psychology should be used to make better product, as in improving the world, the well-being of your customer, and not, necessarily the bottom line of the company. So the first thing that's really important to understand is that humans are not logical beings. Now, for many, many, many years, we've been told that humans always make a cost-benefit analysis and make decisions based on whatever is more convenient or more valuable. But this is absolutely not true, because humans are strongly influenced by emotions, and they're often affected by biases. And then humans make their choices unconsciously. In fact, as Bill calculated, that about 95% of our actions are actually automatic, fast, and intuitive. Now, that may seem like a bad thing, but is actually a really, really good thing, because we are faced with thousands and thousands and thousands of decisions every day, even if we don't realize it. And if we have to analyze the pros and cons of every decision, we'll be paralyzed. Now, for example, if you see this kind of sky and you walk into a very important meeting, now, would you bring a raincoat or an umbrella? Probably, unless you're 15-year-old and you don't care. But generally speaking, you're looking at the sky, you make a decision, because based on your past experience, when the sky looks like this, there is a very high chance that it's gonna rain. Does that mean it's gonna rain 100% of the time? No, maybe it won't. But there is a very, very good chance. So this is kind of a perfect example of one of those mental shortcuts that we use to make a decision without having to think about it. The sky is really dark and gloomy. There is a good chance it's gonna rain. I'm gonna bring a raincoat, or I'm gonna bring an umbrella. So most of the time, the shortcuts and biases really, really help us to make better decisions. So I kind of disagree with the idea that biases are an error in thinking or a mistake. I think that actually help us have a better life. So what are the tools we can use psychologically wise for helping creating a better product? The first thing is understand those biases and shortcuts, all the heuristic, which are like rule of thumbs that we can use to make decision. The second tool we have is use persuasion effectively, and especially learning some of the main levers of influence that were originally defined by Dr. Cialdini's. Nudges, in which you will help show the right path without limiting any freedom or autonomy. And then choice architecture, which means that we can organize our choices in a way that will suggest the optimal path without, again, limiting freedom or autonomy. So what are biases? Like I mentioned, biases are just shortcuts, something that we use all the time to make decisions very quickly so that we can move on with our life. Now, I just list a few of them, but there are about 220 right now. So this page is really, this website called the Cognitive Bias Codex. It will show you all 220 in a very cool interactive display. So you can highlight any of them and kind of read about it. But some of the most common ones that you will encounter all the time is loss aversion. That means we don't like to lose at all, to the point that we will forfeit a reward in case, just because we're worried about losing. The halo and horn effect, how our perception of a person will affect how we believe what they say. So if we really like someone, we may ignore a bunch of other things about them. They're not as great, and vice versa. Anchoring, we always compare things to something that can even be completely unrelated to make our judgment of value. So we don't have an absolute value for things. We always compare it to something else. Framing, as we'll see, very helpful also in choice architecture, is the way you present an option. The words you're using can make a big difference. The IKEA effect, I love that. We value things we put effort into creating much more than things that are pre-made. The endowment effect, anything we feel that is ours automatically get more value, even if is exactly the same thing that somebody else has. And my favorite one, the bias blind spot, which means that even if you know all those biases, a lot of us, and sometimes even myself, think, well, I understand biases, so biases don't affect me at all, which of course is a lie, because every single person is affected by biases, even people that are really big experts in biases. And like I said, there are about 220. So I encourage you to check out the site. Is really kind of a fun a fun example. The second tool we can use is persuasion. Persuasion in per se is not a bad thing. If you ever decided with a group of friends what movie to watch, are you going to watch Barbie or Oppenheimer? Well, you use persuasion. If you want to go see Barbie, you're trying to make a case explaining why Barbie is a better movie versus Oppenheimer, right? So just to kind of show you how persuasion could work, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Robert Cialdini come up with 7 different principles under which all our persuasion kind of fall. Now, let's say that I wanted to convince you to buy this lamp. Now, in my case, you don't need to convince me because I love mid-century design, and actually this is in my wish list. So, but let's say that I had to convince you. So I could use one of those 7 categories of persuasion. So the first one that Cialdini mentioned is reciprocation. We always like to return favors in kind. So if somebody give us a gift or do us a favor, we feel like we're obligated to reciprocate. So a way in which you could sell this lamp by using this principle, it could be, hey, buy this lamp today and the seller will provide a lifetime bulb replacement. So it's more like, well, if you buy this, I'm going to give you that. The second one is commitment and consistency. We like to be consistent to ourselves. And so this is really important because if you decided to do something small for somebody, then you're more likely to do something a little bigger for them because you want to be consistent. So if you ever donated to a charity, no matter how small of an amount, if you did it once, you start getting this new idea that, hey, I'm a person that donate to a charity, so you will be more likely to do it again. So we could use this principle to sell this lamp by saying, hey, has somebody who bought Danish design before, you cannot miss this find, and kind of bring you back like, hey, you like Danish design, how can you not like this? Social proof, I'm sure I don't have to explain this. We like to see what other people are doing. And that's why we read reviews. And so using that as a persuasion matter, a persuasion matter that actually help and say, hey, the seller has a diamond status and a 5-star better seller. One other way it would be liking. If we like a person or a company, we're way more likely to buy from them, regardless of the quality of the product. So how do you make somebody like you? Number one, flatter them and make a compliment. So you could say something like, your previous purchases show you have an excellent taste in design. The PH5 lamp will fit nicely within your collection. So it made me feel like I know what I'm talking about. So of course, I will understand what a beautiful lamp this is. Then there is authority, power of authority. That means we follow whoever we consider an authority. Now, remember that this does not have to be an official, quote unquote, authority, but somebody we consider to know what they're talking about. So one way you could use this to sell this lamp, it would be the PH5 lamp is the most valuable mid-century lamp according to mid-century modern expert. So again, now if you actually more specific, it would be even more persuasive. But even just saying that expert in this type of design recommend this, so it's probably a good thing to do. And then there is scarcity, which actually Dr. Cialdini considered the most powerful of all, which is there's only 3 left at this price for one more day. Now, scarcity, especially in number, work the best. Limited time is helpful as well, but the number is going to be the stronger persuader. And I can tell from my personal experience, it gets me every single time. I am aware of it, but I still get convinced to buy stuff. If there is only 2 left, of course I need to buy it, right? And finally, the last one is called unity. And so this go beyond liking. Unity is a principle of feeling like you belong to the same tribe. whatever that tribe may be. So, for example, you could say that this lamp is one of the most prized possession among Italian design enthusiasts like yourself. I'm Italian, I'm a design enthusiast, so this is my group, my tribe. So it doesn't have to be an official group, but any tribe you feel you belong to. And once you are within the same unity, we are exactly the same, so I will trust what they say more than what other people are doing. Now, a couple of more tips that comes from actually a brand new book called Magic Words. So those are very small things, and you can actually use in your real life as well with your relationship. So, but if you want to be more persuasion, trying to turn actions into identities. So if you wanted to convince somebody to go vote, and in the United States, that's a huge problem because a lot of people don't go vote. Instead of say, go vote, you could say, be a voter. Be a voter has a sense of permanence. It's not something you do one time and then you never do. You actually are a voter. And it goes back to the consistency. If I'm a voter, of course, I'm gonna go vote. The other thing you can do is to be very concrete. So if, for example, your friend is, complaining about something, instead of say, oh, this is horrible, repeat what they just said. I was like, oh, wow, the fact that your boss refused to give you a raise is really a bad thing. That's gonna definitely help by, it's called also mirroring, will help you be more persuasive. Also conveying confidence, and this works especially in United States. I'm not sure how much it works in Europe, where there is a little bit different way of being. But if you're confident, you definitely gonna be trusted more. And that means one way you could do that is turn the past in present. Instead of saying, oh, I read this book and I found it interested, you could actually use the present and say, I read this book and I find it right now really, really interesting. For example, obviously you don't want to be arrogant. Even in the United States, arrogance is kind of frowned upon a little bit. And then the power of question. Always ask follow-up question. If you're not, if you try and persuade somebody, trying to ask him follow-up question is always going to be a good way to be liked. And remember, we listen to people we like a little more. And this is like the last tip is like to persuade yourself to do something. So if there is something you don't want to do, try to talk to yourself in the third person. Instead of like, oh, I can do this or I should do this, you can say, come on, Tiziana, you can do this. That feels more persuasive for some reason. If you want to read more about it, Magic Words is a great book. I have not read it, and I don't get any kickbacks for recommending books, by the way. I just love books. So, and then there is nudges. Nudges has been somewhat controversial, but I think, in my opinion, it got misunderstood and not understood the right way. The idea of nudges is a positive reinforcement or an indirect suggestion to influence the behavior and decision-making and to close the intention-action gap. What is the intention-action gap? Well, a lot of time we know what we wanted to do. We know what's good for us. We know what we should do, but we just don't do it. Now, not because we're lazy, not because we have poor willpower, but sometimes it's just really difficult for us to follow through. So nudges can help you to follow through. But, and this is really the crucial thing about nudges, to be called a nudge, they maintain full freedom of choice. And that means that even if you're nudging in one direction, there should be no excessive cost involved in deciding, nope, I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. So this is kind of what a nudge is. So it's not forcing you to go somewhere, it's not tricking you to go somewhere. It just point the way, say that should be the best way, and trying to make it really easy for you to go that way, but you can always go the other way if you don't want to. And the final tool is choice architecture. Choice architecture is kind of part of nudging. It was also defined by Richard Thaler and Ken Sunstein in the book Nudge. It's basically the way you organize your options, your choices, and the impact of that presentation on decision making. That's what choice architecture is. So there's something you can do. The number one, of course, how you present the order of the choices. So I didn't even write it because this is kind of the most obvious. What order are you putting your choices in? Because we usually read the top and bottom of the list, not the middle part. That's what we don't really remember. One other way you can do that is reducing choices, offering smart defaults that kind of indicate what you think it will be the best way. And this is where things can go seriously wrong. But in this example I have here on the left side, notice that the default is a one-time, which probably reflect what most people do when they make a donation. So it's kind of a default. And by looking at defaults, like, oh, probably most people only donate one time, so it's okay. Also, break down your choices over time instead of giving me a very long donation form, for example. In this case, they actually broke it down in a couple of steps. Also, dividing different options in a way that's very easy. So notice that they make 4 buttons, like 50, 100, 500, 1,000, or other. And again, I like the fact that they chose the lowest. Now, 50 still could be a lot of money for a lot of people, but they chose the lowest amount, which is really nice. Also, fewer attributes. So if you have to describe the choices, the shorter, the better. And finally, framing, like I mentioned before, is the way you present those options. For example, notice that here, to make you convince or persuade you to donate monthly, they don't just say become a monthly donor or something like that. It say become a monthly hero. And that makes a really big difference. You may think, oh, words are just words, but they can make a drastic change. So those are kind of some of the tools that we can use. Now, all those tools are amazing and very, very powerful. And they can work really well. Of course, there is no advice I can give you will work 100% of the time. So you should always have some kind of test or, review. But unfortunately, because psychology is so strong and powerful, can also be used to mislead or trick customer and get them stuck. So I want to just briefly talk over a little bit of some of those. I'm sure you may have been familiar with some of them, but the two biggest way in which psychology is used for evil and to mislead people are deceptive pattern, that also known as dark patterns, that were first named by designer Harry Brignall, and sludge. Sludge, once again, was mentioned in the book Nudge. Interesting, the author said they call it sludge just because you rhyme with nudge. But it refers to overly complex processes, and most of the time intentional, but sometimes they may not be intentional. But bottom line, they slow down and trick the user to maybe choose a choice that's not the best for them. So let me show you a couple of deceptive patterns. This is very, very common. Checkbox used incorrectly. In this example, you have 2 checkboxes, which is exactly the same, but the first one tells you to check it if you don't want it to receive spam, versus the second one, you need to leave it unchecked if you don't want spam. So there's the same exact element, the checkbox, but they have opposite behavior. This is obviously very tricky also because the second behavior is more common for us. So we are used to see a checkbox. If you don't check it, that means I don't want it to get any email from you. But obviously they take advantage of that by having an opposite behavior. So I will bet that tons of people check the first uncheck the first box because they were hoping that will not get any spam, and they end up getting a lot of spam. This is actually a pretty recent example. I'm not even going to get into the Twitter X controversy, but one thing that happened, and that was reported on August 3rd, so it just happened, is that Elon Musk decided to move the designation of ads from the bottom to the top right. so that people that used to use Twitter all the time, they know that an ad was identified by a little checkbox, like a little arrow pointing up, and then promoted by blah, blah, blah. And now the only way you can find out is because there is a little word that say ad on the top right, which, by the way, the top right is one of the parts of an interface we look at the least. So this is one of the things that obviously, one of the many things that Musk did. If you're from United States, you're really aware about Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster is a monopoly that sells event concert tickets. You have no options. If you want to go to that show, you have to go through Ticketmaster or any of this affiliate. They have different name, same idea. So why is that a dark pattern? Well, because the price advertised in this case was $177. I didn't go to the show. I don't even remember what show it was, but I just did that for the example. So the ticket is $177 for the floor. Okay, it's expensive, but it's really not that bad in the United States. So a couple of different things. First of all, it doesn't tell you what your SIN number. Why wouldn't it tell me what the SIN number is versus like, I kind of want to choose it. But the best part is when he said resale tickets, $177 each plus fees. So you may think about it, well, maybe there is a $5 fee or something like that. But then you go to your checkout, the service fee for each ticket is $34. Plus there is some mysterious order processing fee for $2.95. So you basically end up paying an extra $70 for 2 tickets. Just because there is no reason for it. And if you do want to have your ticket shipped, you're going to pay some more. Now, as a PDF, for their, they're so nice, they're not going to charge you, but otherwise you have to pay for it. So this is definitely a tricky proposition, because by then you already chose your seats, or you chose what you want to do, you're very invested, you want to go to the show. By the time you get to check out, you already spent a lot of time doing that, and you're probably really excited about the show, so you will accept the service fee because there is no other option. Either you go to that show or you don't go, and if you do, you have to pay the fee. So definitely a very bad example. Now, Harry Brignall has a whole site called deceptive.design that define every single one. And my favorite part of his website is the Hall of Shame, where you actually can see like recent example of really bad deceptive patterns. He also has a brand new book out called Deceptive Patterns. And he's actually kindly gave me a few discount code. So if you use a discount code Tiziana 20, you can have a discount on the digital version of the book. I only have a limited number. I think he said about 20, 25 ones. So if you want to use it, obviously first come, first serve. But I recommend it. Once again, I don't get any kickback. But he is definitely the first person that organized this pattern into it. Is also testifying, especially in Europe, for again in trials against company using deceptive pattern. And thanks to him, California actually have a law that make dark pattern illegal. So we definitely owe a big debt to him. Now, this is an example of sludge. So again, sludge is making something overly complex for no reason. So this page is for unsubscribing to their newsletter. So what this page required to do to unsubscribe, you need to deselect every single thing you don't want to receive. Notice that there is no button that say deselect at all. So you manually have to deselect every single one. And then I don't know if you can see at the bottom of the screen, you have to enter 4-digit to, make sure you're not human. Now, this is obviously ridiculous, but what's even more interesting and ironic is as I was preparing this presentation a couple of days ago, I obviously, unsubscribed. I took the time and unsubscribed. I got one more email from them saying that, hey, you haven't visited our site in a while. So I had to go back and unsubscribe again. Now they changed their page now, which is really nice. So that was their email, like it's been a while, and their page is easier now, but you still need to uncheck the box that says send personal emailings. And keep in mind, I came here on this page because I click unsubscribe. So it was pretty clear what I wanted to do, but they still have as a default, send me personal mailing. So I have to read here to decide what to do, enter the 4-digit, and hopefully I'll be cut off of their email. So all of those to show you how easy it is to do really bad thing with psychology, right? But we're here to talk about the ethical part. So I do believe that psychology can be a superpower, but just like Stan Lee said, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And so I feel that if you are using the superpower, you have to make sure you use it for good. So just like, in fact, Cass Sunstein, who wrote the original Nudge book, wrote another book called The Ethics of Influence, which is all about, is persuasion and influence bad or good? And basically the idea is that influence and persuasion is not the same as coercion. So ethical psychology will preserve freedom of choice, but also will try to steer in the direction of welfare, autonomy, dignity, and self-government. So the example he makes, which I think makes perfect sense, I think, to everyone, is a GPS. So a GPS will tell you where to go. It will give you kind of the best path according to whatever algorithm is based on, but nothing's going to happen if you decide not to follow. And in fact, a lot of time I don't follow the GPS. And in fact, the GPS will adapt to my choice. So if I decided not to follow that suggestion, it will recalculate and kind of create the path from wherever I decided to go. So I love this quote because I think it really summarizes what nudges are. And he mentioned there are, again, intervention that steer you in a particular direction, but also allow you to go the wrong way. To counter such, a nudge must fully preserve freedom of choice. If an intervention imposes significant material cost on the chooser, including, and I add this, cognitive load, it may be justified, but it's not a nudge. So a real nudge will tell you, hey, this is, will help you push in the right direction, but it's easy enough not to follow if you don't want to. So what is an ethical designer to do? Well, I wish we as designer had like a same oath that doctor has, say first, do no harm. So I believe we have the duty and responsibility to treat others with fairness and respect, and we should be placing the customer and well-being above all business profits. Okay, so this is an example of a negative nudges or something you use to trick you. So this is an app that asks you if you want to receive notification, and notice the two options are later or update now. This is very, very confusing because there is no option to say don't send notification. And update now make you feel like you're updating the app instead of your preferences. So even though it's not, it's not impossible to choose the right way, it's definitely making it very difficult. And this is a very classic example. If you ever cancel a subscription, either on Amazon or any other service, you have to go through this. Meaning, instead of just say, I want to cancel my subscription and give you a button to say, okay, cancel, you get, do you really want to cancel your account? This particular site called Lead Pages actually go worse, because not only you have to find the right button, which is the gray one against the blue purpley one, but you also have to check all three boxes to say, I understand that I'll be inactive. I understand I can reactivate my account. I understand that the price is likely to increase. So it's definitely a big example of sludge and our pattern, because you make it hard to find the right button, and you have to also go through this to make sure you actually cancel. But nudges can be really fun. I just found recently this image, I believe is in London, but I could be wrong. And it's kind of a fun way to it's kind of a fun way to convince people, persuade, nudge people into throw away the trash, to vote for their favorite movie. So, you know, of course, maybe people think about that Barbie's trash and that's where they put the trash. But bottom line, it doesn't matter, because it's a fun way for me to go and just say, hey, that's really, really fun. I'm going to throw my trash away. Now, one of the reasons why nudges are so important is something called temporal discounting. So temporal discounting simply means that we obviously value immediate gains over future gains. So do you want $100 now or $200 in 3 years? Most people will take $100 now, right? But interesting, that also works against our best interests when we're thinking about our future. In the United States, there is a big problem of people not saving for retirement. And so there have been a lot of different interventions to trying to figure it out why people wouldn't save for retirement. We obviously cannot rely on, you know, a state pension or Social Security, because probably not going to have enough money. So it is really important. And so they have a study in 2009 using MRI, magnetic resonance, and they showed that when we think about our future self, like us in the future, our brain activates the same exact way as if we are thinking about a complete stranger. So, which is really interesting, because that means that our future self is basically a different person for us. We consider as a different person, and we care for our future self the same way as we care for a complete stranger. So one intervention that was used, and I was really surprised to see it, this is from my husband's new job benefits. In the United States, as you know, we don't have retirement pensions, we don't have health insurance. So each company, when you get hired, give you a packet of benefits. One of those benefits, it will help you, you could save some money pre-taxes, so you're not going to pay taxes on it, for your retirement. This is called a 401k. Now, the good thing about this plan is, number one, you're going to pay less taxes at tax time, but also a lot of companies will contribute to that fund. So if you, let's say, contribute $1,000, the company may match like 5% of it. So it may not be a lot, but it's free money. So why wouldn't everybody do it? Well, the plans are usually incredibly complex, and we go back to sludge. And so this company decided to implement a smart default, and basically says that if you make no decision, and sometimes that's what happens when there are too many decisions or too complex, 6% of your salary will be deducted from pre-tax unless you choose otherwise. So again, they make it absolutely easy to do the right thing for yourself, which means save money for retirement. Other way you can use nudges to help is place barriers to make us pause. So certain social media app, this is called Nextdoor, would actually, if you write something, a comment or anything like that, using a specific words, it will pause and say, hey, hold on, this particular expression caused hurt in other people. Are you sure you want to send it? Now, you can still send it. You can still click publish, but that at least make you think. And as you know, a lot of time we post on social media just because we're angry or something like that. One other way that it can be very helpful is framing. If you're trying to lose weight or increase your fitness level, showing your weight gain just like this, so is definitely very encouraging. Even though it's just a pound, you feel like, wow, I did a lot. So that can be very helpful. Another way you can use nudging, it would be to convince people to get like a flu vaccine. And they use a very interesting method from behavioral design in which they ask you, are you planning to get a flu shot this year? There is no commitment. You just click yes or no. But just because you click, let's say yes, that already makes you more likely to actually go and get your vaccine. And then this is another interesting thing I saw from The Guardian, which I really like. I wish more company would do that, is that it will mention how old the article is. Now, I was actually looking for this, even if it's old, But it's really nice because it tells you, hey, this article is more than 22 years old, which basically means it may be outdated. So just so that you know, you can still read it and nobody stops you, but at least it lets you know that, hey, you may want to pause, especially if you want to share it or something like that. This article is actually pretty old. So in my opinion, those are all good way of using psychology to help us do things. And in fact, I believe in nudges so much that I always use self-nudges. Self-nudges are basically way that you can implement in your own life to help you do what you know you should do, but it's very hard to do. For example, you want to cut down portion, which is a big problem in the United States. One great self-nudge is to use a smaller plate with smaller utensils. Now, that sounds like, oh, you know, is a trick, you'll know, but honestly, your psychology will be tricked to think that you hate a full plate and therefore you're satisfied, even if it's less food than on a regular plate. And I have to say, I do that a lot, and it really, really helps. And there are tons of other self-nudges. I refuse to buy sugary drinks, maybe, because if I don't have them in the house, I can't drink them. So all of those things are nudges that you actually apply to yourself. So psychology can be incredibly, incredibly beneficial, as long as you keep in mind that the ultimate goal, it should be the welfare of the people you apply nudges to. So hopefully by now you're kind of convinced, and you probably wonder, okay, how should I do that? So that's great. I understand ethical design is great. I can use psychology, but do you have any practical tests? It's like, yes. But the first thing I want to show you before I give you some practical tips is that ethical design is in real life on a spectrum. There are certain things that are 100% unethical, and there are certain things that are 100% ethical. However, there is a lot of gray area in between in which certain things can be ethical or not, depending on the context. And in my opinion, any progress toward ethical design counts, because it's better than no progress at all. So as I said at the beginning, I'm very practical, even though I think we should always be able to do the most ethical thing. I also realize we live in real life. So any progress, I feel, is a win. So the first thing you can do is get informed. So learn about deceptive pattern, learn about data mining, manipulation, any other technique used to trick, as well as any applicable laws. Because unfortunately, as I'm going to mention in a little bit, sometimes that's the only way you can convince your boss, by just saying, hey, you're breaking the law. So if you're not aware of what the laws are, it will be harder to use that tool. The second thing, you want to ask yourself a few questions. So those questions are from the Ethical Design Handbook from Trine Falbe. Is why are you making this decision? Who benefits? What are the likely consequences of the decision now and in the future? And would I want my loved ones to be using this? And I think the last one is probably the most poignant, because if you feel uncomfortable for your loved ones to actually see that message or look at that website, then probably is a good sign that you're not doing something right. Now, there are a lot of different frameworks that you can use. This is another one that I really like from Dr. Matthew Beard and Simon Longstaff. And, they're just, a principle, which I feel that kind of combine everything we said so far, as well as good user experience rule. So just because we can doesn't mean that we should. Also, don't consider people as a number just so that the company can make more money, and maximize the freedom of user of design. Anticipate all possible uses. In fact, try to break your app. Try to consider what can go wrong. Maximize good, minimize bad, treat cases in a like manner and different in different manner. And then obviously accessibility and design with honesty, clarity, and fitness or purpose. So again, you can pick whatever framework, it doesn't matter, make your own, but use something as a framework to just remind you. Now, ethical design shouldn't be a checklist. Oh, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. It's just a way of designing. But at the beginning, a framework can really help. And this is another test I really, really love, and I'm gonna be doing a quick example with you on how to apply it, is the TARIS test. And I apologize if it's not pronounced correctly. I'm not really sure how it is. But basically that stands for truthfulness of the message. Obviously, don't lie in your message. Be authentic, as in really believe what you say, meaning don't trick people. You know exactly what, you know, it should be the truth, but you purposely saying the wrong thing. Respect for the person, no tricks, no manipulation. Equity of the appeal, don't take advantage of your power position if you have one in relationship to your user. And of course, social responsibility for a common good. So it's a very, very easy test, and I want to do an example with you just to see how you would do it. So this image is from a website, an American website called Meals on Wheels. I'm not sure if it's available in Europe, probably not, because you have a social system. So, but the Meals on Wheels is basically providing meals to seniors that cannot afford it or they cannot leave their house. And they also provide companionship, because the volunteer not only drop off the meals, but also establish a connection with the senior they're helping. So if you were to use that test, we can start with truthfulness of the message. I can tell you that this is really what they do. They're a really good organization. So I would say, yes, they're pretty truthful because they rely on volunteers. And they actually give different, again, provide companionship as well. Authenticity of the persuader, yes, because once again, what they say, they believe. This is probably designed by volunteers. Respect for the person they're persuading. If you notice, it doesn't show anyway any condescending, any savior kind of complex, or like, oh yeah, we're here and we can, you know, fix all the problems. There is no exchange of different power, a power differential. So is together, we're not better than you and fixing the problem, we're together. And obviously social responsibility, this is a charity. So of course, social responsibility. So it definitely passed the test, but how did they use psychology for it? Well, there's a few things. Number one, is a trustworthy name. If you live in the United States, you know, you're familiar with Meals on Wheels. Also, which is another interesting, it's called cognitive fluency. Rhyming words are easier to remember. So Meals on Wheels rhymes. And so it's something that's very easy to remember. In the United States, being a veteran inspires a lot of respect and gratitude. So we also go back to the reciprocation level. Thank you for your service. Now we're gonna help you. You serve your country. Now we're gonna help you. Also, they have a picture of one of the clients, and we're always attracted to faces as human, especially if they're looking straight at us. They really create an engagement, a much stronger engagement. The personification inspire empathy. So they don't just say, oh, together we can deliver, but we're gonna bring meals to seniors. They just say George, inability to drive does not mean he'll go hungry. So we know that this person is George, a real customer. And then of course, using together. So we are in the same tribe. We're talking about unity before, that's exactly the same thing. Now, the other thing they're using is that they have a big fine meals. So you feel that, oh, they're not just asking for donation. If I need help, I can actually receive help. And then he talks about ways to give. So it feels like, okay, I don't only have to give money. Maybe there are other ways I can do it. And of course, I don't want to have any senior left behind. He talks about body and soul. That means not just about food. So it's not real just dropping off. That could be like, you know, any other app that deliver food, but we actually create a connection with our senior. So this is an excellent example of using psychology for a good cause. And then of course, I'm a designer. So I also will say that clean design, beautiful colors, good typography, all this thing helps. And even if you're not a designer, a clean design would actually inspire more trust than a messy one. So I also want to show you, and we're almost at the end, but I want to show you another example that it does the exact opposite. So this is a website that was created. It's called No to SB 362, and it is a California proposition that will ask data brokers to offer a way for customer to delete all their information at once. So instead of having to go to all different companies, there should be able to, if you forward the request to cancel your personal information once, it will have to be sent out to everybody. So this is what the proposition is. It's not out yet, but I want to give you this background because the website is really not telling you a full story. So if you look at it, by the way, in the frequently asked questions, some of the question is the bill will raise healthcare costs. The bill will create a tax of $30,000. This is pretty obviously made on purpose to kind of scare you. So let's do the same test, truthfulness of the message. This is a lie because the app, the proposition only asks to unify a process that's already working. Authenticity of the persuader, absolutely not, because the organization behind it is the Consumer Data Industry Association. So obviously the people behind this are people that are data broker, meaning they take data from multiple sides, put it together, and then sell it to other people. There is no respect for the person they're persuading because they expect you, which unfortunately a lot of people I'm sure not going to get more information about it. So they think you're dumb enough that you're not going to do that. Obviously not an equity of the appeal because they know all the facts and I don't, and definitely not a social responsibility or the common good. So what did they do to trying to make it persuasive? Number one, there is an apparent appeal to reason when you say, hey, there are 15 reasons. So it sounds very concrete. Same thing, they're using faces, and we are always attracted to faces. They also use women and women of color. So trying to display this diversity, small business, like they actually care about small business. Also, they are using a lot of catastrophizing. Don't destroy the economy. Who wants to destroy the economy, right? And then he also show you that by having those women in the front, it's like, oh, it's not just about money, it's all about people. And then you have California digital economy depends on data. So this doesn't really explain anything. It's like a vague buzzword, data. What is data? And if you go even further and look at some of those questions, they're all lies. And if they are not 100% lies, they are definitely exaggeration. So when you say, that it will raise healthcare costs, that's absolutely not true. He also say, will deprive family members of public and private benefits owned when a relative dies, as it will be impossible to locate the beneficiaries. Data broker has been around for probably 10 to 15 year max. So how did they do it before, right? So most of these things are either completely false or misleading, and definitely catastrophizing, make you feel like, oh my gosh, it will harm California, make you really scared. So this is a horrible way of using psychology to convince. And just in case you don't believe me, this is the actual explanation of the bill, in which it says, allow residents to make one single request to delete their data. Now you can still do it. You just have to do it one by one, which is a big sludge. Right. And in fact, just for this talk, I did it, and I still haven't received it was super complex, and I still haven't received an answer if they deleted my data. So how you convince your boss? Very easy, because ethical design reduce costs, add revenue, help you retain talent, and avoid legal issue. So how does that work? This is a super basic example, but you can plug in your own numbers. So if you're reducing customer support calls from 200 to 150, that means you're saving $50 calls, which means less than 4 hour less of work. And if you consider that the hourly rate is 25, which is probably not true, but let's say that is 25, just by taking away 50 calls a month, you will save $100. So again, this is really basic and simple, but if you can find real numbers, you can actually show a before and after. And that's a very convincing argument for your boss. Also, you increase revenue because according to a recent publication from Lumoa, 49% of customers will lose trust in a company that use manipulation, and customers are smarter now. 10% will cost cutting with a 2% retention. So if you can keep even 2% of your customer more, you will cut costs about 10%. 65% is the chance of selling to a customer that already bought from you versus 15 is the chance of selling to a new customer. And almost 90% of people switch to a competitor due to a bad experience. So those are just numbers. And if your company only care about bottom line, this is kind of the way to get through it. I know it would be nice to convince men that ethical design should be done because it's the right thing to do, but sometimes you have to do whatever it takes, right? And then of course, legal fee, especially in Europe. America is very slow on this, but I know that in Europe, plenty company got fined for not listening to or respecting the GDPR or similar laws. So a couple of resources for you, some printed ebooks and version for ethical design and Click, which again, they're both very practical on kind of how to. Those are just other principle for good technology, ethical design manifesto, privacy by design, and of course the book Deceptive Pattern. Now, this is not exhaustive at all. I'm working on a more complete list, and I will publish it as soon as I can. But those are kind of good place to start. So if you don't know where to begin. And with that, I'm gonna thank you and wonder if you have any questions. Let me stop sharing.
Yes, that was a really nice presentation, Tiziana.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed. So are there any question or?
You guys can all switch your cameras on and your mics, or you could just turn on your mic if you don't want your photos shown, and then you can talk to Tiziana.
I know. Left you speechless, huh? Anyone? That's great.
So the last time we had a...
Yes, please.
Can I just come in and say that was very, very good presentation, and I have taken so many points. I usually work as a user researcher with designers in the gov sector in the UK. So some of those points that you discussed were really new to me, and thank you so much.
Of course, anytime. Anytime. It's great, thank you.
You can also find a lot of content by Tiziana on Medium and on the Ethical Design Network. You also write for the EDN still, right, Tiziana?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I know Eva, I hope I pronounced your name right. She asked me if I'm doing more presentation. I'm actually am. I'm gonna have one presentation in September on the user research group. So I can pass it on and post it. It's gonna be on UX psychology and research. So how to apply psychology to UX research. So I will post it out. I don't remember the day, but I think it was the 13th of September. And then you can find a few of the recording on some of the presentation on LinkedIn. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, I have a few posted in there. So that you can find some more there.
We'll also share any content that you provide on your page as per usual. And we'll create a listing page for all the resources. Tiziana is also partaking in other panels under this initiative. And I think, those are not entirely individual events, but still, I think, it's quite interesting to hear the discussions.
Sure. Yeah, and of course, if you want, I also do corporate training too. So if you need me to come and talk to your organization, let me know. I'll be happy to.
Awesome.
Oh, hi, Tiziana. On that note, hi there, my name is Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa.
I'm creating a small group of women designers in my city, in Portugal. And ethical design is something that I've been trying to learn more about because it's not something that was on my design education. It wasn't included.
Yes.
And I was wondering if we could invite you to talk to our group. It's starting this autumn, so
Yes.
if that's something that you can.
Yes, for sure. Reach me on LinkedIn. Is gonna post my link. Well, my LinkedIn was there,
Yes,
but
if you could share, I can add you
yeah,
in the
LinkedIn.com. And I know my name is hard to spell, so it's probably easier to just post it. This one. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
There are
Anytime.
a couple of questions online on LinkedIn as well, Tiziana.
Okay.
So I'll ask those after everybody in the live audience has finished. And then for the person or the people who are asking about the slides on LinkedIn, yes, we will share all of that on Tiziana's page, and the link is in the description. But we'll post it again.
Okay.
Tiziana, I was having some technical issues. I'm not sure if you covered this already, but there was a question earlier, and I know I don't have her name correct. She has left now, but Pitia, she had mentioned a question about ethics with earlier in your presentation about the scarcity. So she had a question about scarcity and the ethics of that. Do you want me to read that question out, or?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So she had asked, I'm living with the pressure of scarcity right now with some Ryanair flights I need to make a decision on soon. Surely that presents ethical concerns. I hate the anxiety that scarcity inevitably triggers.
Yes, 100%, 100%. I, in fact, generally speaking, I very rarely recommend using scarcity because it's so powerful unless it's real. So if you really have only 2 items left, like, I mentioned before, I only have, 20 discount code. That's not a lie. It's really true. I mean, if you don't use it, I don't care, but I just want to make sure that it's like an information part. So if it is true, I think, if it's important for your customer to know, it's great. A lot of the time, and I honestly wouldn't put it past like Ryanair because they already use a lot of like dark pattern before. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're lying. And sometimes you actually can see from the code, which is really interesting. I did see one site one time in which if you look at the code where they say only 3 left, you can see that the code say find a random number between 10 and 15, or if you look like 0 and 15. And so that was obviously a lie because it was just showing a random number every time that looked like, oh, it's running out. So obviously that's absolutely not something. But yeah, no, I agree. I'm a big anxious person. That's why that scarcity gets me all the time because I get freaked out like, oh, I'm gonna miss out. So, but again, I feel that there may be time in which is okay. If it is, as long as it's true. Yes. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Tio.
So from the LinkedIn chat from the Netherlands, somebody was asking if we could analyze a website on charity. So the dubious charity greenwashing, whitewashing sort of thing.
Yes. What side? Yeah.
I think we wouldn't have time to really go into analysis in this session. And I think maybe this is somebody who's seen your December event where we evaluated that case study. So I think perhaps that's why he's asking.
Right.
You can, it could be.
Yeah, you can reach out to me and let me know what site it is. And I can try to do maybe like a quick video about it. And then I can post it on YouTube or something, and then you guys can watch it. Yeah, for sure. So
I think it was more in general, like he doesn't provide any details.
Just just a regular charity ones. Yeah, no, for sure. If you and again, if anybody has any side that kind of curious, we can even do with you, Candice, if you want to like a little break down or like tear down or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
Because it
Definitely.
is really interesting to see what certain companies do. I mean, interesting and sad. If you are in California, and I don't think a lot of you guys are, but go research that law, because it's ridiculous how much money they're already, it's not even on any kind of ballot, and they're already spending a lot of money to say vote no to it, even though they haven't even really put it on the ballot. So that's definitely something to do. So yeah, awesome.
So yes. Okay, the different requests, but yeah, Tiziana, I look forward to having you on the other panels, and
Okay.
yeah,
that
it would
sounds
be
great.
interesting to do a couple of case studies. We'll
Yes.
post the links here for people
Right.
to find, but also on
Yes.
the standard channels. I know you're busy preparing for a conference, so yeah,
right.
if we do one a month for the next couple of months.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. That's not a problem at all. So
Awesome.
wonderful.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks everybody for joining, and yeah, I hope you learned a lot about ethics and UX and how the two merge. I think I really had a few more questions, but yeah, maybe it's a good time to end. So yeah,
Sure.
thank you
Either,
very
I mean,
much.
I have a little bit of time if you want me to answer,
Yeah.
and if whoever needs to go, they can go. And
Yeah.
if you wanted to say, they can say. If you want, I'm not. It's early for me, so it's like only 10:15.
Well, then I think I'll just try and keep it brief, because I tend to go too much. But you know, the philosophical question of ethics and psychology, and I think we talked about, we've got the other panel in the making about a philosophy. So this is more a philosophical standpoint. But yeah, if you analyze the psychology of psychology and you look at the history of where it started and how it's developed over the past decades, I think there's a lot to be said about the ethics of psychology.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say that I think there is a little bit of a, I don't know if I call it an awakening or something like that about right now, and the realization that a lot of the psychology, it was based on weird countries, so Western Europe, European, industrialized. I don't remember what it stands for, but basically Northern Hemisphere and Western society. So a lot of the study was based on that. And so it is important to also consider that, there are other places in the world. In fact, the majority of the people don't even speak English. So it is important to kind of expand psychological. In fact, I was just reading an article yesterday about the marshmallow test. If I don't know if you're familiar, but basically it was like a classic study in the 60s, I believe, in which they had little kids and they showed them a marshmallow, which is the sweet treat or some treat that they really like. And they told them, like, okay, you can wait and get 2 of those, or if you wait a certain amount of time, or you can get 1. And then they would leave the kid with the sweet treats or with the treat and see what they did. And the whole idea of the study is like, well, the kids that were able to delay gratification, they were then like more successful later on in life and so on. So, I mean, we all agree that delay gratification is a helpful trait. But one thing the article was mentioning that in Japan, that she tried to repeat the same thing in Japan. And what she noticed is very much depending on your culture. Like, for example, in Japan, kids, since when they're little, they're used to wait for eating. Even at school, you have to wait. And I think in Europe is a little bit like that too. You're used to wait for everybody to be served before you start eating, versus in America, it's really not like that. And so when they put Japanese kids and treats, they were better at resisting. However, on the other hand, when they did the same kind of test with a present, and I was like, okay, you can have a small present now or 2 presents later, they noticed that Japanese children were worse at waiting and resisting than American children. And so the conclusion she came to is like, depending really, like the idea still holds, but depending on what you're used to. Like you can train your delayed gratification. So like in America, kids are used to wait to open present. They don't open it right away. Versus in other country, when, you know, even in Italy, I know when you get a present, it's rude not to open it right away. And so that's the kind of a different cultural thing in which, so Japanese kids are not used to wait versus American kids were. So it was a very interesting, I had to find the article because it was a very interesting comparison in which is like some of those principles, while they are universal about delayed gratification, they may be slightly different based on cultural risk. So I think there is a lot more recognition of this now.
So, yeah, that's also another panel, bridging cultures. So much going on, so many interesting things that I could like just make an entire session with you. But for now, thank you everybody for joining, and until next time.
Thank you all.